And so I was like, it's not hard. Like the wrap, the gauze that you put around a cut all around my face. So I looked like a mummy. I was like, wow, that's really cool. All right, so here we go.
Here we go again.
So normally we have a personality that's pretty consistent, pretty much the same. But every now and then we might do something that makes us say, whoa, is that me? We might act out of character. It can be snapping at somebody when you're usually pretty calm. It could be making a decision that doesn't seem in line with decisions you've made before. It could be suddenly setting some firm boundaries when you're usually pretty easygoing. And there's lots of different reasons why we might do these things. Probably the more common is we're overstressed or overwhelmed. Sometimes we're just not feeling good. Sometimes it's mood changes. And yes, sometimes that's because of hormonal changes, but it could also be things like just emotionally exhausted. And sometimes there's physical triggers, like if it's too hot or too cold, or you have low blood sugar, which we call being hangry. Sometimes those things make us act out of character. While those things exist, sometimes there's actually good reason for it. Sometimes it's the process of introspection, which we talked about in another video, where you really reflect on maybe needing to change some things for your own good and sometimes even for the good of other people. So, today we're going to talk about times that we acted out of character, why we think we did that, how it changed our lives, and maybe something we learned about ourselves in the process, and maybe even how it changed our relationships with other people. Sound good?
Very interesting.
All right.
Yes.
All right, let's get started. So, the first thing I'm going to ask each of you is what is something you did that was a surprise to you, whether it was rising to the occasion or acting out of character just completely? And I'll start with mom.
Oh, well, yeah, we all have experienced something in life that we were not prepared for it and took us by surprise. I would thinking about it a big whoa that I didn't expect was when I went back to college at 50 years of age. I went to college and I studied early childhood, which was different from what originally I wanted to go to school for. I wanted to study archaeology. So I ended up with early childhood and working in a preschool, and I loved it. Another thing I would say that took me by surprise or didn't expect exactly how difficult that would be after my divorce, and I was a single parent. Usually I'm a calm person, I think, but there were a few times that I had a few meltdowns. It's difficult. It's difficult to be a single parent. You have to do both and going to school really because I was going to school then and I would leave my 12-year-old son who was living with me. My other two wonderful children were going to college. And yeah, sometimes I would have to work, rather go to school during the week at night or Saturdays. And that was a bit stressful.
Sure. So, two interesting scenarios. One was more thoughtful in terms of your decision making to go back to school for something that you didn't really think was on the horizon for you. And then a situational moment, maybe a couple moments where you had a meltdown because you were overstressed, right? Okay, so we'll come back to questions related to those scenarios, but we'll go to Aunt Lauda next to tell us about a moment that surprised you.
Okay, well, this one was very interesting. That was back on 2003 that I moved to this city. Actually, I was promoted in the company as a manager, and they wanted to open a new destination. So we came here and we started hiding, subcontracting actually, outsourcing personnel. Of course, all this process, it was overwhelmed for me and changing the city and hiring new people and getting a new position. It was really kind of a stress. However, I was very happy. We got our staff. They were very pleased to work for the airline. However, time goes by and people are starting to complain about being outsourcing instead of belonging, being direct employee. So what I did, is start figuring out what we can do about it, right? Because all you want to do is have a, happy staff and good performance. They were doing great, actually. So I took a chance when I was able to take a chance and talk to my boss then about it. But he never believed it. He actually said, no, there is no, you don't want that, no question about it. And plus, there is no budget, right? So, yes, it took me a couple of years, but at the end, he retired actually. And then there was a new boss. So I decided to go for it. People were really stressed out, but they were doing the best they could. And I presented my project to the headquarters and pushed really hard. And finally, they accepted.
Nice.
Yeah.
Which is
Even
not
this.
easy to do. I mean, I think that's a real sign of leadership when you are really paying attention to what's going on with your people and putting yourself out there, not for yourself, right, but for the good of the team or the people that are working with you. And that is always stressful to go to higher ups to ask for something, but you thought about the good of everyone and you took a chance. We'll circle back to what led to that for you, like what helped you, motivated you to move forward with that, and what you learned from that. My story, so the way I approached this was I thought of a couple moments in my adulthood where I acted out of character, but actually what came to me was more how I was as a younger person and aspects of my younger self that I wish, and there's moments where I wish I could pull on that person now sometimes. And when you hear the story, it'll probably make more sense. But I think when I was younger, I definitely was more fearless and less concerned about what other people thought. So this story, and you probably don't find it funny, but I find it funny. So we were in the Bahamas. At the time, I was probably 4 or 5 at school. It's a Catholic school, and that's important. I'll tell you why later. But we were at lunch eating, and it was like an open patio that had a cover, and then there was like a wall that surrounded all the picnic tables. And so at the time, gymnastics was really popular. And so I remember I was with this group of students, and we were talking about gymnastics, and they were talking about something they saw and how hard it looks and all that. And so I was like, it's not hard. So I proceeded to stand on the wall and I did a really great routine. I was kicking my legs forward, backward, turning around. It was totally good. It was great. And and
You
they were all,
felt
oh,
great.
that's cool. So I sat down, very proud of myself, and then I think I was reaching for my lunch and I twisted. And when I twisted, I fell backwards. And behind the walls were a bunch of trash. It looked like a forest. So there was broken tree limbs, but there was also broken glass, broken, yeah, it was pretty nasty cans that were crushed. So, when you crush a can, the edges are real sharp. And so what ended up happening, of course, was I was cut all up. I was bleeding. My face was a mess. I have a lot of scars still. So they called for help. The nurses got me. They cleaned me up, but they put like the wrap, the gauze that you put around a cut all around my face. So I looked like a mummy. And I was like, wow, that's really cool.
I love it.
So when
Gymnastics.
So when they were walking me out, because of course one of my parents had to pick me up, the classes, because I think it was kind of humid, so class doors were open, right, to allow natural air and stuff to come in. And I passed my older brother's classroom, and I just saw this look of panic on his face. He was like, and I was like,
Now
I'm
that's
out of here.
courageous. Oh my goodness.
He was early, leaving the school earlier.
And
Oh
I looked
my
really
goodness.
cool. And so that's the story that came to mind for me because I think it's a moment of like I didn't really think, but I didn't care. Like I was so bold, like I'm a superstar, I can do anything. And then even in the face of danger, I was like, "Psh, it's not a big deal. They'll be fine." So so I think when I think of how I am now, sometimes I'm like, who is that person? I want that person.
And
Again.
yes, I need to mention that back then, I actually went for vacation. Every time I follow your mama, anyways, you were the happiest kid I ever deal with. I mean, you were jumping all the time. You jump into the ocean. You care less about anything. You were so happy. We see, I mean, every time you see the pictures, it's like, wow, Joanny,
Who is that?
what happened?
A happy, daring child. Oh my goodness.
I love it. I
It was a
love
good
it.
moment. It was a good moment. But anyways, I want to
Very
circle back to
courageous.
your situations and what led you to behave in those ways, what you think led to those things. So, mom will come back to you and the situations that you talked about.
Well, the going back to school, I think it was to better myself, get a better position. I had to have, the certificate, or well, certificate more than degree of an early childhood. Sometimes we have to do, the best we can to better ourselves. And the meltdowns, just like we were saying, is a stress, and sometimes like a stress that accumulates,
Mhm.
and it just, you just blow up, actually, for very little silly things that really are not important. And that's when, for one reason or the other, you just explode. I had several, a few, with my poor son living with me. And I guess it was the stress of going back to school, recently divorced, as usual, financial, situations. But I tried to, do the best I could with the difficult things happening.
Yeah, and I'm sure as people listen to this, there's lots of others who go through that, especially as you said, as a single mom working, going to school, and trying to be present as a parent too. And we'll talk more specifically. I think with that situation, that's probably a more common add a character moment. We'll talk about ways to manage the stress better so that you don't have as many of those situations. We'll hold that thought and we'll go to Aunt Lauda and what led
Okay.
to your add a character moment.
Well, actually, the outcome was great. For me, was so very important the people, right? To be in this process, which was very stressful for me as well. Like we were saying, I had to go through all this presentation and whatnot and convince the company. But the outcome was great. I thought about the people, their integrity, but I also was thinking about the company success.
Mhm.
I was focused on, if you believe and the people commit to you, you will have better results, definitely, than just pushing, or treating them like, you just come here and work and leave, right? So for me, it was great to see the outcome. I think the company was very successful then, and now up to date, after 20 something years, they still here. And when you see all these good results, it's like wow, of course it was more work for me, back then, and lots of changes, but at the end it was worth it,
Yeah.
right?
And it sounds like you really thought through the pros and cons of approaching headquarters about this idea that you had. And I think a lot of times when you're moving with integrity and purpose and a clear sense of the why this is important to bring to your attention, it usually plays out the way that it should, right? It usually serves the purpose that you intended. And it sounds like that's what happened. It had a really good long-term impact, right? What you're talking about. So I think driven by the notion of what was right for everyone involved, really propelled you to get the courage to say, I'm going to do this. Yeah.
Yes. That's what I did.
Yeah.
Representing them, And of course, I mean, you see how people they're so happy at work. Their performance is much better.
Hmm.
And you can start seeing the good results on,
Hmm. I think for me, what led to my gymnastics,
We-
acrobatics performance, like
the
I said earlier,
stars.
I wasn't thinking. And I think that's the thing. I was completely unfiltered, unbothered by anything.
I love
And
it. I
even
love it.
after facing danger, right, and actually getting hurt, I think I was just like, well, that's what happens.
Oh, I
I get to
love
Oh,
leave
it.
school early.
I remember because usually I would stay home when we were in Nassau, in Bahamas. I think we just had one car, and their dad would use the car. But anyways, I usually was home. And that day, for whatever reason, I went out with this friend, this other wife, this other lady, and of the Marines. And when I come back, she's laying down on the sofa. Oh my God, what happened? I'm always here, and I wasn't here. I think your dad picked you up.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah.
It was the professional gymnastics.
What was
What?
really cool was I remember that the house we were in had this in the main hallway when you come in had this big glass like floor to ceiling mirror, but it had this weird glaze on it, this weird design on it. So when I came home and I had this wrap all around my face, I was like, "Oh, that's so cool. I kind of look like a monster. This is neat." So clearly just not phased by anything. So
I love it.
Very daring, daring.
I love it. I love it.
so so what did you learn about yourself in the process of having these out of character moments? I know it loud we'll go to you because I know you started talking about this already a little bit, but what was the
Yeah.
lesson for you when you did this?
Well, for me, I felt so proud. Kudos to me. When I saw the outcome, I mean, it's like, oh my God, you did it, right? So it feels great. I mean, it was very rewarded when you see the success of a big company like that. And up to now, people that are still working there, they send me thank you messages. Every time they see me, it's like, because of you, I'm here. Because of you, they recognize me, and that feels so, so good. Whatever happened to me after that, erases all the bad experience because of what I did. And honestly, to all of them, to this company, I did it. So I'm very proud. I'm very proud of myself, and I still see up to this day, but it was worth to do
Yeah.
all the process.
Yeah. And I don't think you had in your mind that people would be saying thank you because you weren't necessarily doing it to get the appreciation. You were doing
Oh,
it
no,
to better the situation for those people, for the company, like you
for the
said.
company.
But it does take a degree of courage, right, to say, I'm going to put myself out there because I'm the representative saying this is what I think needs to happen. And so to know that you had that level of bravery to put yourself out there, be the voice for this. And then
Oh
it did
yeah.
have a lot of positive outcomes. So it
And
was,
you face people that they don't agree, right? And they have other interests, right?
mhm,
And of course you have to be very well documented and
mhm,
have your reasons why you want to do it, like you said,
mhm.
you know.
Yeah, completely. You
Yeah.
had to be really prepared to face
Yes.
the people that were for it, that were not for it. And it sounds like you were because it resulted in a success. Yeah.
Yes. Yes, I
How,
guess so.
for sure, for sure. And then for you, Mom, what did you learn about yourself?
Well, I have to mention though that you are a very courageous person, very daring and enduring so many things after that. That is a lesson. Well, I learned what I could do, when I went back to college and at 50 years old, and I could do it. I felt proud of myself, surprised, was a little bit of wow, I didn't expect, to go this different route as an early childhood teacher. But I love that. And as for what I learned going through such difficult things, not as courageous as this little girl jumping in gymnastics, but I learned that, you can do things, and somehow you have to work it out, because there's nothing you can do if you're going to, circumstances that are going to make you stressed, and try to work the best way. So I learned to have a little patience with me and with others, and just keep on trying. Taking care of yourself, taking a walk when necessary, eat well, try to sleep well, and take care of yourself. I think I learned that, but more than anything, patience,
Yeah.
because, well, we're just trying.
Hmm. That's right. We're just humans trying to get through things.
And I want
Um,
to take this opportunity in public to recognize the great job you, Joanna, is doing and you were doing all this time, especially as a therapist, professional therapist in mental health. I'm so proud of you. And also I'm proud of your mom because she went through all this and goodness gracious, look at her.
mhm,
She's now happy,
mhm,
independent.
mhm.
I love it. I just love both of you.
Yeah.
I love both of you too.
Yeah.
No, I completely agree. And I think, Mom, that the lessons you've learned that you're hinting at are great tips for people. And we'll end with a couple more tips. But yeah, I think you did an amazing job. And there are probably moments you felt you were not because it felt like you were just getting by. But I think all of your kids are doing well, and it's a testament to your efforts. And likewise, Aunt Lauda, you've
Thank God.
gone through a lot. I know we've talked a lot about the challenges growing up in such a large family and finding your way and being independent and having a lot of success with I think a lot of emotional support, which is great, but a lot of it was tough work that you had to do on your own. So, I always say that you're my inspiration, and I mean that sincerely because, you look for role models and mentors to be your guide as you're trying to figure things out too. So, so I appreciate both of you.
Mm.
Now we've all talked about the ways in which our out of character moments impacted other people and what you learned from it. But do you think you lost or gained relationships from some of these out of character moments? Or how did it affect the relationships that were the direct recipients of? I know Lada will start with you because you started hinting at, the choice you made to approach leadership with your idea resulted in a lot of success and people actually sending you thank yous and kudos. But do you want to talk a little more about some of the long-lasting
Yeah.
effects on people?
Well, being in the position as a manager, and of course you have your coworkers in that level, there is always comments and criticize and things like that, right? Because all they're doing or they want is to wait until the bad moment that I will face, like when you have your own staff. Of course, you have situations that you might not be able to control or fire a personal and all these administrative process. But unfortunately, there were people out there within my level that of course were not happy, that criticized me, that see, I told you, and things like that. But again, it's something that you believe and something that you work hard for it. And yes, you have to. There will be some stones in the way, that will make you fall sometimes. And it was hard. It was 8 years of my work, ups and downs. But I'm happy. I'm really happy for me. I'm happy for the results, and I'm happy for those people that are still there. They built something. Now they are very well independent, and whatnot. So yeah, it was worth.
Mhm, mhm. And that's a great mindset, right? Especially in that particular situation, there's people who are going to continue to not favor you because you spoke up, in addition to the people that the other side of it, right? That because of what you did made their work life better and they're appreciative. So it's always finding the balance and knowing there's always going to be naysayers, we call them, or the people that will try to get in your way or question what you're doing, to shift focus on the positive outcomes of what you decided to do. Yeah.
Very important.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Mom, how about you?
Well, I'm glad and thankful to God I didn't lose any relationships. My three children are still like me. Well,
Sometimes
it
just
was
kidding.
very difficult for them. And I would get angry that I couldn't help, especially you and your older brother in school. I wanted to do more, and it was kind of frustrating, that we had certain things that you could not do. The same token, I couldn't go to Mexico and visit my family. If it weren't for Aunt Laura, that would bring your grandparents, my parents, here to visit, or she would invite me to go and visit them. But in reality, I'm thankful I didn't really lose any relationships through all these ups and downs of life. And I met some very nice people at work. And working with children, small children, is always, a wonderful experience, to guide them a little bit at the beginning of their life. So I loved, doing the early childhood career, the choice I made. But I'm thankful that I really didn't lose any relationships.
Yeah, yeah. In fact, I think that first decision regarding going to school and then going down a work path of working with children, probably you developed a lot of great relationships with other teachers and professionals, and it sounds like it was a very fulfilling work working with young children
Their
and
parents. I have parents that
parents.
I see in the supermarket, church somewhere. Miss Anna,
Hmm.
how do you remember me? I
Hmm.
mean, those children are going to college now.
Yeah. And they don't forget either. I think teachers are, I think, the less appreciated career, but they have such value for every individual, right? They're the foundation of how you see the world and learn about the world. And you foster these really great relationships with young kids as they're growing up. There's an adult that cares about them, right? And is showing them the way. And yeah, like them as adults now also reaching out to you says a lot about how meaningful that work was, even though you didn't see it as something you were looking for, right? And that's the direction you went. And yeah, I think we all get overstressed and overwhelmed, and our best self doesn't show up in those moments sometimes, but we know it's situational. Your kids certainly know it's situational. We've all probably had those moments too. And, I think it's as much about forgiving yourself around those lapses, right? You don't do it with bad intention. It's just your cup gets too full. And that's what happens. It spills over, right? And I think that's a good one to talk about too when we talk about tips, just dealing with stress and managing that so you don't have as many of those moments. So we'll circle back to that. For me, I didn't lose any relationships. In fact, I think I became a legend. And I think my older brother said people were talking around the campus like your sister jumped off the cross on the main building. And I'm like, what? They're like, yeah, they said you're like trying to be like Supergirl or something and you jumped off the cross. And I'm like, that is not what happened. But if they think that and they think I'm like extra cool for that, okay, fine. Um, but
Famous. You
I
were
think it
famous.
terrified my older brother because then he was like, "Do not do that again." And I was like, I can't promise you anything. So, but I do think now that story is a reminder to me when I am feeling a little more cautious or skeptical about something. I try to remember that person so that I tap into whatever that courage, bravery, I call it that. I don't know if others would call it that,
Daring.
to get through things.
Great.
So,
Wow.
so I do want to circle back to being overstressed, overstressed or overwhelmed, and that resulting in us acting out of character. And Mom, you hinted at this about taking care of yourself is really key. Like good sleep hygiene, get enough sleep, eating well, good diet, exercise. And even with all those things, we can sometimes still not be aware of how high our stress levels get. And so when we feel ourselves getting to a moment where we might melt down or yell unexpectedly, right? However that looks for us. It's important to know what those signs are because sometimes you can feel it coming on, whether it's you start to feel like this energy in your body, this tenseness, or some people even get hot when they're about to explode. And so recognizing the signs first is important because then you can start activating things to try to lower that stress level, right? Some people do breathing, deep breathing. Some people do what's called box breathing, where you breathe in for 4 seconds and then you hold it for 4 seconds and then you breathe out for 4 seconds. And you do that 2 or 3 times to just even just lower your all the internal things going on with you so that you feel less stress. Some people take a break or pause, sometimes even removing themselves from the situation to have that same kind of outcome of just lowering everything in your body. Some people do grounding techniques, and these can be things like noticing things in the room that are the same color and calling those things out, just so that you are not internal in your head and those things amp up that physical experience you have that can sometimes result in you, lashing out, yelling, whatever the case is. And then aftercare is really important. And I hope in those moments, Mom, after you had your moment, you had an opportunity to just sort of kind of settle down because even those moments can really rattle us. And physically, we can also feel we could shake. Sometimes we cry when we're that upset and overwhelmed. We can cry. And I think it's okay to do those things, but to really then just, even the things I mentioned, the deep breathing, meditation, things afterwards can help you recenter, right? So those are things to keep in mind when that's the kind of out of character moment you have. Yeah.
Good.
So this was a good conversation. We learned some things about each other. It was a great love fest too.
Yay,
So
yay.
I'd be curious for people listening if any of this sounds familiar, if you've had an out of character moment and you have tips for how to, reduce the likelihood that you do those kinds of things. It's always great to learn from other people. If you liked this, if you want to, subscribe because we have a lot more coming. But before we wrap things up, I will introduce myself. I'm Joanna and my aunt
Laura.
and my mom.
Ana,
And we want to remind everyone, whether it's good, bad, or funny,
live
live
it
it
up.
Live it
up.
up.